Today is upgrade day. So this bench was originally made to be my outfeed table on my table saw. So I'm going to build another one of these, just a little bit longer and just a little bit narrower to have as an auxiliary bench. And I'll put a shelf underneath to store stuff as well. So right now I have all the wood for it. I'm going to build just a MDF top, all Home Depot stuff, which for this type of thing, it's just an auxiliary bench, so I don't need to spend a whole bunch of money on real nice lumber for it. This will work fine. I do have some repurposed 6x6 posts. I had a big post that I found on a construction site and cut it up into 4 legs here. I just need to trim them down to size, and those will be the legs. And then we'll be putting some wheels on this bench so that I can kind of move it around as needed. So that's what we're going to be doing. So the first thing I did is I set up my saw with just a stop on the end here, just to trim these posts to the right height for my bench. And the goal is to have the bench made up pretty close to this height, so if I ever want to lay something across both benches, I can. So unfortunately, my saw, which is a 12-inch saw, will not cut through these posts. So you can see I have to roll them to get through, but not a big deal. You just, with the stop in place, you can make some pretty accurate cuts still. So that's what I'm doing here. Feel free to fast forward if you don't want to watch me cut all 4 of these. Next, I'll start cutting the longer 2x6s. These will be used for the long part of the bench. Again, using a stop to make consistent cuts. There'll be 4 of these in total. side. Just like the longer pieces, there'll be 4 of these. Now that all the 2x6s have been cut to length, we go ahead and cut the pocket holes in each 2x6. I'm using 3 holes per end, and you know this bench it could easily be done with 2x4s as well and 4x4 posts, but my goal is to make this very heavy. It's going to be on wheels, but I want it to be pretty stout so I can use it for a variety of different things. So I decided to go with the 2x6s and using pocket holes to join everything. If you are new to woodworking, I would highly recommend getting a pocket hole jig. This is an older version of the Craig pocket hole jig. Jig is one of the original ones. Still works awesome. I don't see any reason to upgrade at this point, but you know there are some there's some better ones out there, but this one does a trick, and I've never had any problems with it. And you can build a ton of different stuff with pocket jigs, especially just stuff for your garage and shop and stuff where you know joinery may not be as important as far as the looks of it. But I've had great luck with pocket holes. I know there's mixed opinions in the maker world, but they are very useful for a lot of things. So highly recommend it. If you haven't fallen asleep yet, we are about done with the pocket hole drilling for the 2x6s. So hang in there. So all the pieces are drilled, and we are ready to start assembling. So we're going to start assembling the bench, and I've decided to do spacing. I wanted to do a spacing of the same thickness of the 2x6. So I'm just going to lay a couple pieces down like this, so when I attach onto the leg, we'll have that consistent spacing. One thing I definitely recommend when you're using pocket joinery is to clamp things in place. Pocket joinery has a tendency to crawl when you're screwing things together, so the more secure you can make it before you start attaching stuff, the less headaches you're going to have with stuff moving around. A couple clamps in the right location make a world of difference. Once you get one of the screws in place, or even a couple of them, then you're good to go. Again, using clamps to secure the workpieces before you pocket screw them in. To do the side pieces, I've used some scrap pieces to create a nice flat surface and create the spacing that's consistent with the legs that we already, or the long piece we already attached. So just some scrap pieces clamped on, secure your work, and then screw them in place. That's right. Next, we'll be putting the shelf support pieces on. Very similar process to the top pieces. I've decided to go ahead and put these, flush with the bottom of the legs, which, you normally wouldn't do. But since I'm going to have casters on the bottom of these legs, uh, I wanted to get as much clearance for the shelves as possible. So I decided to go ahead and just take them all the way down to the bottom. The casters will raise the bench up about 5 or 6 inches, so plenty of room to get a broom underneath and have clearance underneath. So same process as before, just using scrap pieces to create a nice flat spacing and clamping everything in place prior to screwing it. All right, so we have the two sides and the front done. Now we just need to put the back on. It's laying on its side right now, as you can see. So put the back on, and we'll be ready to put the top on. Rather than boring you to death, the top or the back piece was, built the same as the other piece. So I went ahead and built that and then set it up on top of the chair. And then we'll attach everything together. Here I'm just getting the clamps and everything set, and having to kind of tweak a little bit because, as you know, when you buy wood at Home Depot, you're bound to get some twists and bends and cutting and anything else you can imagine. So having a lot of clamps is pretty critical when you're dealing with big box wood. Not to say that it's all bad, but you know, anybody who's done a lot of projects using big box wood, you're gonna find that it does seem to warp a lot. It's the moisture content is pretty unstable, especially when you get back to your garage or whatever. So just doing a little fine tuning here before I shoot the final screws in there, and everything will be nice and secure. It's time for wheels. You take the casters and put them in place and just make a mark so that I can come back with an awl and just kind of get ready to drill some holes. Pretty straightforward. I have casters that have 2 freewheel and then 2 that have brakes, so that I'll be able to keep the bench from moving around too much. So now I just take a awl and I just poke a hole so that when I go to drill, the drill bit doesn't creep all over the place. And once the holes are drilled, we'll be able to secure the casters, and we'll be ready to flip this thing over, put the shelves on and the top, and we'll be good to go. I'm securing the casters with hex head carriage bolts and a driver bit. The size and length kind of depend on what casters you buy, so you have to just depend on your caster, pick the right length and size bolt. These are 2.5-inch bolts, I believe, what I went with. Plenty long to hold these in place. Pay attention where you're putting your casters. You want to have your brake casters both on the same side. So if you're not paying attention, you might install them to where you have a catty corner or just not paying attention. So just pay attention where you're putting them. And there we have it. Wheels installed. Ready to move on to the shelf in the top. Okay, so we've flipped the bench over and everything looks good. So the next step will be making the shelf and the top. So for the shelf and the top, I'm using MDF, just 3/4 MDF. And the top will be just kind of a built up top. I'll make it double thick, but rather than using, you know, two solid pieces, I'll use just some build up pieces you'll see here in a second. It's kind of like a countertop if you've ever built a countertop. But here you can see.
So I originally was planning on building
it's
this
actually
up
laying
with
on a
just
third
two
piece,
solid
so
pieces
it's
of
not actually
MDF.
that thick, but it's
But I
inch and a half
decided
thick.
to
So
build
you got
up
one
just around
solid
the
piece,
edges
and then underneath you have
with
all
some support in the
the
middle.
build-up pieces, just to save on
Conserve a
material.
little
It'll be
wood.
plenty solid when you
That
build
way
it this way.
I can still use
And just, you know, a lot of glue
my
and
other
clamps,
piece
and this thing's
for
ready.
the shelf.
Once
So
the glue sets up, also
that's what I did
brad
here.
nailed
Just a simple, kind of like a
all
countertop.
throughout
Just
this.
built it up,
And
once it's all dry,
once it's all dry, we'll be ready
flip
to
it over and
take the clamps
install
off,
it on the
flip
top.
it over, get
Be
the
good to
shelving
go.
put in
It'll
place,
be a nice solid top.
and this bench will be ready to use. So time to remove the clamps. If you don't have a lot of clamps, you can glue it, and you can screw it as well, or you can just use brad nails like I did. The glue is going to do most of the heavy work for you, but having a lot of clamps definitely makes this type of stuff nice. Here I'm cutting the shelving. Rather than trying to fit one whole piece in there, I'm just going to do it in halves to make it a little bit easier. I'll be able to scribe the ends that way and just get a nice fit. There'll just be one seam down the middle, which you'll never see once there's stuff on the shelf. So these are just the cutting these to length, and then putting them in place, getting ready to scribe. I've laid the pieces on the shelf, and I'm getting ready to scribe. Simply putting them up against the 6x6s, drawing some lines, and I'll use a scribe to get the next line, which you'll see here in a minute. But just take your time. It's not a difficult process, and you can get a nice tight fit, make it look really nice. Even though it's just a shop workbench, doesn't have to look like a shop workbench. You can make using a jigsaw. We'll cut the openings on the shelves and slide them in place, and we will be ready to move on to the top. So sorry for the shaky camera work. I had the tripod sitting on the piece I was cutting, which is probably not the smartest thing to do, but you get the idea. So I'm just going to show the one cut here. I think you get the idea. We'll put those in place, and then you'll see the shelves in place. Then we can move on to the top. There you have it, shelves in place. Okay, there's the top flipped over. We're going to go ahead and roll the bench into place and slide the top on. It is pretty heavy, so I just use my other bench to kind of hold it in place, and I'll just slide it onto the new bench. Not much to it here. Just get it in place and get everything spaced and overhang the way you want it. And there you have it. There is your finished weekend workbench. If you found this project helpful, please like and subscribe to our channel. This is not a difficult build. You can do it. Very handy to have that extra bench in the garage, especially when it's on casters. So until next time, thanks for watching, and Howard Custom Works. Goodbye.